Hey y'all, how are you doing? I just wanted to give you an update on how I'm doing with my sobriety and talk a little bit about what I've been going through mentally, physically, emotionally, also about something that happened the other night and how that's kind of informed me about my addiction. As you know, or if you don't know, I've been struggling with addiction for the last 9 years related to trauma and PTSD. I was not able to cope emotionally with the pain that I was experiencing, and I tried to numb that pain by getting high or by getting drunk. So I tried getting sober in 2013. You'll all know about that. And I was sober for 3 years, but never from marijuana, only from alcohol. And then I started sneaking alcohol, like I relapsed privately and still put up this front that I was sober. And then that all came crashing down when I had a very serious relapse back in August that many of you know about, that landed me in the ER for the second time. Almost cost me my life. I thought almost cost me my marriage. This time around, I am actually fully sober. I just celebrated 5 months free of alcohol yesterday and 7 months free from marijuana 2 days before that. I cannot tell y'all how much being fully sober has changed my life. I know that for me, I have to be fully sober because, one, I'm such an addictive personality and I have such intense addiction that I just I can't function and manage anything in a reasonable, normal quantity. I will always abuse it. Something else I've learned in trying to get sober was the mistakes I made the first time around, never going to 12-step meetings, tried to handle sobriety on my own. That was such a, one, lonely road, and two, misinformed decision. I really assumed that 12-step was only going to be religious-based, and I'm finding that that's completely not the case. So in August, I started the 12-step program. I have a sponsor, and this has really given me hope that I can reach a ripe old age and be with Bria for a very long time and maybe overcome some of my addiction. Addiction's never going to go away. There's no cure. I'm going to be battling it for the rest of my life, but this has actually given me hope that maybe that is possible. Since we moved to Washington, I've been going to meetings. I have an incredible sponsor, and I've been trying to do the right steps, self-care, having the horses, exercise, and even still, it is a struggle. Early sobriety and in your first year of sobriety, I've been dealing with a lot of feelings of depression, anxiety, and I have a tendency, as many addicts do, to completely isolate. Going to 12-step meetings helps to keep me around people, helps me to see that there are other people, even if their trauma source is different, there are other people experiencing the same feelings on the same track as me that can offer camaraderie, support, as well as hope that if they can overcome it, so can I. So I found that such an invaluable resource. I really thought my addiction was with marijuana and with alcohol. The other night, Bria and I were doing a live stream, and being an addict, your judgment is not very good. A lot of times you make irrational decisions, and you try, as you get sober, to try to put those things back together, start using logic, but you still make mistakes. I have such a difficult time sleeping. And so I took my sleeping medicine before a live stream the other day. I understand that many of you may think, well, that was stupid, whatever. Yes, it was a mistake on my part. It was a lapse of judgment that my intent was not to cause any issue. I've done that many times. Usually I take an over-the-counter sleep aid that's sort of like Benadryl or something that's not an actual psychoactive substance. And within about an hour after the stream, I'm able to fall asleep. This was my prescription sleep medication that is a psychoactive substance. Once I was on an empty stomach, and pretty soon I was behaving irrationally. I was saying things that were absurd. You could tell that I was under the influence of something, and for me, it canceled out my memory, so I don't recall what was happening. Bria said I was trying to get more medication. She came into the room and I had more pills in my hand, and the next day, this was all very scary for me. I ended up talking to my sponsor, and I explained I was not trying to relapse. I was not trying to get high. This was just a really poor lapse of judgment, and it became very clear to me, to her, to Bria, that I can't take any psychoactive, any kind of mind-altering substance because, unfortunately, I've discovered that if I am under the influence of anything, my subconscious, and maybe some of you, if you struggle with addiction, maybe you can attest to this too, or tell me in the comments if any of this seems familiar or you understand. But if I am under the influence of anything, my subconscious desire is absolute self-destruction. And it's not something I have control over. If I am under the influence of anything, I will immediately, impulsively start doing more things that are very bad for me. I will either try to take more pills, I'll try to get higher, I'll start lying, I'll start sneaking around, or, like with alcohol, I'll drink a whole bottle of vodka. Very, very scary, very dangerous things. So while this was not a relapse, I still have my sobriety. It was an extreme red flag that even a prescribed medication for me as an addict, if there's anything that I'm taking that alters my thoughts, alters my memory, I can't trust myself with it. I cannot be trusted with it. Right now, Bria seized all my sleeping medicine. I'm just gonna try to not use anything at this current time and just see if my body can regulate and adjust and start sleeping naturally for the first time in a decade. It was extremely jarring and very scary for Bria, for me, just to realize that it is such a life and death situation for me. It makes me feel really guilty. It makes me feel very self-loathing, a lot of just intense negative emotion towards myself, like a failure, hopeless, all these things. And I understand that's part of the effects of addiction, but I also get that through a 12-step program, through having a sponsor, through having healthy people and relationships around, and not being left alone in my mind to keep affirming those negative beliefs, I realize that I can slow that voice down and I can try to inject some self-love in there by making better choices. So I find that if I'm getting outside, if I'm playing my guitar, if I am really connecting with Bria and going to meetings and photography, playing with the cats, if I really fill my time with things that are going to keep my mind engaged, I can add one more minute, one more hour, and one more day under my belt of being sober. And I am more and more fulfilled by just the joy of life itself without being under the influence of anything. The simplicity of living is there's just so much to enjoy by just living. If any of you struggle with addiction and you have any tips, or if you understand where I'm coming from and have shared similar experiences, I know that this road is going to be difficult, but it gets easier the longer that I have. But there's always a chance of relapse. There is no cure for addiction, and so staying involved in recovery is my best hope to survive and to hopefully thrive. As Bria says, I hope one day that you can love yourself the way that I love you. And baby girl, I want that so desperately. And I hope that I can achieve that one day too. And I hope any of you who understand what I'm saying can too. I love you. We deserve to be on this earth, and we deserve to fight for a long and full life.